So just really quickly, I'm going to go over the install of the head on this D16Y7. There's not a whole lot to installing the head, especially if you got the engine out in pieces like I do. You've got 10 head stud bolts, 5 on each side. As you can see from these, I did not use factory head studs. I used ARP bolts and studs. I opted to use these because this is for a turbo build. These are going to be able to sustain a lot more clamp down force on the head and the block under heavy boost. These have very specific install instructions. There is a lube that comes with them, grease, for fastening these correctly. It's very suggested not to install these with just oil, but to actually use the torquing fastener lube. And what you do is you put that on the bottom threads of the bolt, and then you put it on the upper threads of the bolt with the nut and the washer. Take your bolt, slide it down through, thread it in, and you want to thread it down finger tight, and then get your nut all the way down to the bottom of the threads. So basically, if you look at this and you think about this being the top where the nut goes, you don't want the nut like somewhere in here. You want the nut all the way down here at the bottom. So those stress forces created in the bolt actually happen in the main shank of the bolt rather than up here in the threads. The threads are a weakened portion of the bolt, so you want to make sure that nut gets all the way down here before you start tightening it. So basically, I had to come through and seat these down to pretty much finger tight on the bottom, and then make sure my nuts get all the way down to the bottom of my top threads, and then start torquing these down. The torque spec for factory head bolts is 50 foot-pounds, and the torquing sequence is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I believe. I can double check that and post it in the description below. But you need to explicitly follow that torquing sequence, and these ARPs are actually torqued to 80 foot-pounds, which is a decent bit to apply even with the lever arm of a torque wrench. And obviously these should be put in with a torque wrench. These are things that you can't just assume, oh, I got it tight enough. I used a factory Honda head gasket. Now, one of the downsides to these older block engines, this D16 series, is you don't have any alignment dowels for your head gasket. So what I had to do is I took my 4 corner studs, put them in just a little bit to use as alignment for the head and the head gasket. No nuts or washers on them, just sitting there so I could align everything. I set my head gasket down on there and lined it up with the cylinders so it's in the correct placement, because it does have a little play to move around. What I did is I came down on these bottom parts of it, let's see if you can see that, and marked out where it should sit in correlation to the block in 2 spots so I know it was aligned. And then once I got my head sitting down on there, I came and double checked these guys and made sure that they're where they're supposed to be before I actually went and started torquing stuff down. And you may notice things like, oh, the head gasket sticks out a little bit there. Oh, obviously the head gasket sticks out a little bit there. And then even over here, head gasket sticks out a little bit right there. And that's going to be normal with these D16s because there are so many different versions of the D16 that this head gasket is used for, that there's going to be little bits and pieces sticking out that seem kind of odd. That's pretty normal. They're meant for other versions of the engine, VTEC, non-VTEC, D16Y8, Y7, Z6. They're all the same head gasket. So I wouldn't worry about that. And that's pretty much it for aligning and setting the head. You know, get them on there, torque them in the correct sequence, and boom, your head's installed. If you guys got any questions, any comments, I apologize I didn't make a video of actually doing this. This is kind of just me and my buddy like, hey, let's put the head on. And, well, the head's on now. Today, I'm going to be working on putting the water pump and the tensioner on and reinstalling the rear water tube that runs from the pump over to the other side of the engine, as well as the oil pan, pickup tube, and possibly the oil pan. But that's for later videos.